Asteroid of fear.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast, and it is Unfiltered Friday. TGIF, it's the end of the week. Thank goodness. Which means we're a week closer to school being out. This is where you would hear the applause if I had one of those fancy machines, but I don't. So let's pretend. Yeah. All right. I'm sure my daughter's excited, and she is going from elementary to junior high. And so there's a line of events next week, like I think a field day, which will be hotter than all get out, in addition to uh, a little graduation ceremony. But it's not called graduation. I forget what they call it. But like a crossing over, if you will, from elementary to junior high. Maybe it's a walkover since it's in a different building. But yeah, exciting stuff. And speaking of which, I spent yesterday at a track meet, a fifth grade track meet. They had some of the local schools there, and it was at one of our bigger schools. And it was the hottest day of the year thus far in the 90s here in Texas. But it was fun. It was nice to get to go and see other parents and see all the kids, but most importantly, just be there for my daughter. Um, yeah, I am grateful for the life that I have. The way it's designed, whether it be employment, marriage, family, situation. Yeah, I'm grateful for that. I would say that I have it pretty good. And we were thinking about this. I'm actually recording this on Thursday, the 15th. So I was thinking about it this morning as it's my cousin's birthday. Shout out Christopher. He's 24. And we've had him since he was 4 months old. And, it kind of brings me to this point of family. Always got to make sure that I'm recording, of course. Forget sometimes. But, yeah, you know, I can remember having something happen one time. And let's just say a relative was unruly and somebody kind of complained about it. And, you know, and they thought my mother would side with them. Scratch my back here for the viewers. That's what I'm doing when you hear the pause. But they thought my mom would side with them, and she didn't. She sided with family, although they were unruly. And kind of the reason I'm pointing this out or making this notable is I can remember my wife going, man, like, because my wife thought that my mom should probably side with the other party, but she's like, man, do not, like, don't fuck with your family, which is her family too now. She married into this. And, you know, I think like all families, there's a little bit of dysfunction, obviously. However, when push comes to shove, family has family's back, at least in this family. Um, Nobody's ever gone without, and everybody chips in for the greater good. You know, that's why we've had Christopher since he was 4 months old. My cousin, his mother, just was not in a place to care for him. Um, his father, similarly, not in a place to be able to care for him. They were constantly fighting in and out of incarceration. And, once the cops are called so many times to a home, yeah, they're going to place the child in a safer environment. And my grandmother, God rest her soul, was like, in spite of all of her faults, she's like, there's just no way. No, he's coming with us. And my grandmother raised him. And he has been here since he was 4 months old. And there's been some sort of iteration of whether it was me, my grandmother, my uncle, his grandfather, and him living together, or, now it's me, my wife, and my daughter, my mother, and Christopher. So, a couple from all the generations in this household. Some people think it's weird, but this is our family. This is how we do it. We have 12 acres, um, and we live on a family compound kind of a thing. And yeah, in spite of its weirdness from the outside, I'm grateful. I get to see my mother every day. My father's not far away, so I have the ability to see him every day. Um, my wife, my daughter, Christopher, his mother wasn't able to care for him, but he has family. He's, I think, a year or two older, maybe a year and a half older than our older girls, Ashley and Alexis. And so he's always been included. Before Sophie was here, it was all three of us going to Grey Wolf Lodge, um, or coming down to visit, whatever the case was. So yeah, that's how we roll. And I'm grateful, thankful to be part of a family like this. I mean, this is kind of what family means. Um, Not all family is blood related. People do have friends that, no questions asked, they would help. They'll be there. My best friend, I feel like if I really needed something, he would help me however he could. And if he couldn't, he would tell me he couldn't. But it would be honest. I know he would want to. Because, I mean, we're pretty close, at some points in time. We've been closer than he was to his actual brother, so, um, but it doesn't matter, you know. I'm not saying one or the other, or you're wrong if you don't have this. I'm just kind of putting the perspective out there of, um, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's whatever works best for you, your family, your situation, and provides the most love and stability, I think. And that was one thing with Christopher, having been here since he was 4 months old. He might have switched bedrooms, but really that's about it, you know? And, all he has is us, So my wife has always included him. I was telling you how much I love her. Well, I love her because she is that way. So since he was a little youngster, he's always been included. I can remember being an undergrad. It's so funny because he's such a big guy. He's got to be 6 foot at least, I'm thinking. And a couple of 100 pounds. Um, but still, baby fat. But he's like a giant compared to me. Most of my cousins are. I like to go back and find these old Kodaks of where I can remember having Christopher on my hip. Um, Valentine's Day. I don't remember what year, but we woke up and it had snowed and I didn't have class. And we have this gully, and I found some cardboard, and him and I went sliding down the hill on a makeshift toboggan bobsled. But yeah, I have a picture somewhere. I'm holding him because he's a child. Man, let's see. I'm 48. He's 24. So half. I'm trying to think of how old he would have been, but man, he was little. And we have some pictures on the fridge of when the girls were Sophie's age and Sophie was just born. She was a baby. And we took them to it was like the Seton Star Day. Seton Thanks and Appreciation out at the Circuit of the Americas. That was pretty cool. But yeah, happy birthday to Chris. And this is our family. Family is important to me. It's not important to everybody for different reasons. And it was interesting. I never knew this about my wife. This will all kind of lead in somewhere to the conversation. But I was talking to my wife today, kind of about religion, sort of, and science. And something I never knew about her, but she was telling me like that how she thought, like she was amazed at the process of having a child from conception to birth, um, leaving a piece of her behind, as she would say. And I can't tell all her story um, because some things she likes to keep private, and there's some things I don't even know. Um, but that's not for this discussion. But you would know why it's important to her to feel like being able to leave a piece of her behind. But she's the one carrying it. So she's the one that has these feelings and emotions and knows what's going on when she's carrying them. But I was just kind of in awe to understand that this is how she felt, that not necessarily like a miracle. I mean, I know kind of the science and biology behind it because I was a pre med major and I've had A&P and all those classes. But my wife is the opposite of me in that regard. So she doesn't know how that works. And to her, and it wouldn't matter because we were kind of talking about miracles. And I think one of the reasons that discussion had been brought up, hold on, it was, I was telling her about like a post from Cam Haynes. It was a Joe Rogan clip. I don't know who he was interviewing, but he was talking about like religion versus science and saying that he was maybe more apt to believe in Jesus than, like, I guess the Big Bang Theory. You know, you can go watch the clip uh, if I fuck it up, or you can drop a comment and tell me that I fucked it up. Because everybody does love to hate. But uh, he he had said something. It was kind of like, what did he say? Science only asks you to believe in one miracle, which is like the Big Bang, of saying like a particle the size of a pinhead somehow separated or exploded and we have life. Now, I don't know. And Joe Rogan was kind of like, yeah, they're asking me to believe that. Where, the other religion is you have the Bible, you have stories of a person and the resurrection, which is considered a miracle to come back from death. And yeah, so we were talking about that, and that's kind of what prompted her to say, that she was kind of amazed at how the body works and how we can produce another human. And it is interesting. Some things can be explained through science, technology, math. There's explanations for most things or why this works this way. But religion is totally different. It's stories. Think of the game telephone. You can't even make it probably past 5 to 7 people. I don't know what the threshold is of when the story changes, of what could be true or what not could be true. But we've talked about it, or I've talked about it many times in this capacity on some solo episodes of, as it relates to myself and how I feel about faith and religion, was that, yeah, I've always been a believer. Uh, I've always felt that there was something more out there. Couldn't explain it, couldn't see it. Nobody explained it to me. So I thought, well, and I've discussed this on previous episodes, so bear with me if you're having to rehear it for the third or fourth time. But if you're a new listener, it's part of my story and part of my journey. I was burned badly as a child. If you're watching, I have. Let's see. You can't really see the scars, but I was burned badly down both of my legs, and if you're watching, you can see I have a clear kind of line where the skin changes because I was sitting in a bathtub with my legs like so in hot water, and somebody poured chemicals, whether it be bleach, ammonia, and that with the hot water, me sitting in there while the babysitter went to answer the phone, uh, caused chemical burns. And I was in Shriners in Galveston, Texas, at the burn unit for months in a box. My parents couldn't touch me except through the box, and they would drive from Pasadena to Galveston every day to see me. And I thought, well, I'm sure there were crying kids. No wonder crying kids bothers me. Um, it's right on the ocean. Perhaps that's why the sound of the ocean is soothing to me, as I'm sure I was in pain. And perhaps that was, unconsciously a way that I was soothed. And then you have, yeah, yeah, I thought about that, and I'm talking to my wife, and I was like, in thinking about having explained this before many times, of saying nobody ever explained the concept of God, Jesus, or religion to me, or anything bigger, I guess you could say. This concept, because it's all around the world, different religions. I mean, that there is something bigger, something more, something out there. Um, and, and I always say, like, that was never explained to me. So, how? How did I come to gain this belief that there's something bigger out there? There's something more. Was God with me when I was burned? He spared me. He was with me, protecting me, making sure I got well. Was his presence? How I grew up to have faith, to believe in something that I couldn't see without explanation. my parents never really took me to church, so it wasn't like a visual thing. I didn't get a cue and be like, oh, what's that? Oh, explain to me this. I just sort of knew. And, part of the reason I bring all this up was, I had somebody say to me that, you know, something to the tune of, and I'm sure you've heard it before. I know I've heard it before, that religion is kind of something we as humans make up to make ourselves more comfortable with the concept of death because we don't know what happens. Hey guys, quick break, but this one's important. If you're tired of setting goals that never leave the Notes app, or you're feeling stuck in the same cycle, let's change that. Accountability isn't about pressure, it's about partnership. I offer one on one accountability coaching for those who are ready to show up, not just for their goals, but for themselves, their families, and their purpose. Whether you're working on discipline, building better habits, or simply trying to stay consistent, I got you. No fluff, no judgment, just real conversations and real progress. If that sounds like something you need, hit the link in the show notes and let's connect. All right, back to the episode. And that unknowingness provides a level of anxiety, and therefore we use religion. We make up that, hey, there's something after this that we're to go to that's better. People argue with, well, religion is like a form of control because you can get people, yeah, you can manipulate them, that it kind of keeps people at bay, if you will. But yeah, it wasn't my first time to hear that religion is something that humans kind of make up to deal with the unknown, the concept of death. I've heard it before, but it gave me a different feeling this time. Uh, could I say triggered? Was I triggered? Perhaps. Did it bother me? And why? Because normally I'm kind of a person of, like, you do you, I do me. Hands off. Um, as long as you're not hurting anyone. You want to do, yeah. I'm not here to push my beliefs down or my agenda onto anyone. Nor do I want people pushing their beliefs and agendas on me. Hence why I don't do it. However, and because I've run across people, I'm like, yeah, you do you. You're free to believe whatever you want to believe. That's fine. Some people believe in aliens, some people don't. And so, yeah, I had to sat for a couple of days, and I kept remember wanting to talk to my wife, but I never could, like, find the time. And we actually had the time, and so I brought it up and was like, I don't know why I feel the way I feel. What, what does it mean? Does it mean anything? No. I mean, I've been acquaintances with non believers plenty of times. So, what is it? What is it that stirs me up? Is it maybe I'm afraid this person is right about many things, therefore, could he be right about that? I was like, Is that why it triggers me? Or is it, I don't know. Because people fall into that category all the time. And normally I'm like, eh, okay, sure. Yeah, trying to figure that out. Why am I stirred up? Why am I triggered? That's nothing. Well, could say has nothing to do with me. Therefore, so be it. You do you. And checking out my laptop here. And but when you're a Christian, part of being a Christian is to share, share the gospel, be the example, show them what God's love is by being that person. Kind of like, hey, go out and be the person you want to meet. Yeah, be a good person. Isn't that what Jesus said? So, yeah, instead of, I guess, being triggered, I can untrigger and just be like, hey, all right, my beliefs are my beliefs, and my role is just to be the example of God's work through my actions, my voice, the podcast, because kind of that's where much of my drive and intention comes from, is my spiritual connectivity. I've always believed that I was here for a greater good and greater purpose. I've never known what it was, never knew how it would unfold, but here we are in the form of podcasting. At one time I thought I wanted to be a musician. I don't know, because I loved music, makes you feel a certain way. But of course, every little boy wants to be a rock star or a football player. You know, but I was specifically kind of referring to artistic endeavors in general, because, as many of you know, I was encouraged to take the practical path, that of formal education and corporate life, and but I've ended up here in this artistic endeavor, and it's unfolded nicely at the right times, running into the right people, growing organically. Is it the universe? Is it God? Is there a scientific explanation for it? Possibly. I work hard, I track habits, but I don't know. I mean, I'm a person of faith. That's me. Why, how? I don't know. I've just always had it. And if there was ever a time in my life that you've known me and maybe you didn't think I had faith, or I'm sure my behavior was not reflective of being a good Christian. But, if you've listened to any of my story, you know that at one point I had sinned to a tune of what I felt could never be forgiven or repaid, and subsequently went on to self destruct. But it wasn't that I never stopped believing. I didn't stop believing. It was just I didn't feel like I could be forgiven. So I just kind of threw caution to the wind. But it was, it was always there. So yeah, I will just continue to do me, explore that, be the example, let God, the universe, do his thing with me. I'm just a vessel. Yeah. Um, just the vessel, just the platform for others and whoever for his work through me. All right. What else did I write here in my notes? Maybe I should put my glasses on. I'm not seeing so well over here. Well, one good thing Monday. I've got a great episode lined up for you on Monday. If you listen to last Sunday's episode, you'll remember that did a little Mother's Day trip to the not Fogo de Chao, Texas de Brazil, and went to a comedy club. And I was able to meet and speak with a couple of the comics, actually, all three of them. And Monday's episode will be me interviewing one of the comics, Spencer Sileo. Got that done yesterday. That was great. Thank you, Spencer. I look forward to you guys hearing it, but it was a great conversation. Highly enjoyed it. And yeah, so that's what you guys get to look forward to on Monday. Super stoked about that. And then, oh, what else was I talking about? Yeah, right here. I was like, I had this thought when I was at the gym because the gym is attached to the clinic I used to manage. I was like, yeah, podcasting, of course it's a fit. We used to do this thing called rounding, where once a month I would have to round with you and ask you. They had a form, a series of questions, but it's that time that you spend with your associates checking in. Um, and for me, it wasn't like work related. Always, it's like, hey, what's going on in your life? What's going on at home? And I know some people probably hated it because I could round on you for an hour. I would have to pick key times because I enjoy to talk. And I especially enjoy to talk to people I care about. If you work for me, then yes, I 100% care about you and give a shit about your life. And I want to know what's going on because it contributes to your performance and how we operate and function as a team, how we succeed in our mission that we chose of healthcare. But I don't care what company you work for. I mean, this is valuable, knowing your team. And I was like, yes, of course I enjoyed it. That was my favorite part of the job, was getting to connect with my team members one on one. And it was reflective in that I was a tier one leader. I'm grateful that they thought highly enough of me to put me in that category. But yeah, I really enjoyed rounding. That was 100%, you know, the start of it's kind of like interviewing. And I think part of it was because Spencer gave me a compliment and saying that he thought I was a good interviewer. And I was like, thank you. Well, I'm passionate about it. And, it's evident. And that's why rounding was one of the most important parts of my job. And so I'm thankful that we had to do that. Other than, sometimes it was like, oh, you felt like you had to get it in. You have to check the box. But for me, it was much more than checking a box. It was it was the highlight for me. And then we'll leave you with this. I saw this. I don't know if it's for real, if it's AI, because AI is getting out of control on visual things. So uh, I saw this. Wait, let me look over here. It said Klein. Shit, I erased it. But it was Klein Automotive or Klein. Supposedly, and that's Klein, but it's like a flying car. It said the first street legal flying car. And I'm like, okay, maybe kind of cool. And this whole idea, I don't know if it's Fifth Element. Uh, I know one of my roommates loved that movie, Mila Jovovich, I Fifth Element. Yeah, because she's a dime. For all you youngsters out there, if you don't know, go look her up. But flying cars, and a lot of people believe we will have flying cars. And maybe we will, and maybe it would be good. I don't know. I've always, you know, I'm not into sci-fi shit, so whatever. Um, because that's what you think of. You think of Fifth Element, you think of flying cars, and now I see this thing and I'm like, flying car, but I'm like, realistically, even if you could, is it a good idea? I mean, there's this whole airspace thing. Yeah. And I don't know if you've kept up with the news, but it seems that they can't even control the airspace they got. And what they were giving people vacation for stress or something. These air traffic controllers, I feel like I've heard somewhere on other podcasts. And, you know, you had the Marine helicopter and the plane of people from Kansas that went down in the Potomac, I guess. Yeah. So what I think about is like, yeah, okay, maybe it's cool. Then are you going to have a pilot's license or what? But what I thought I was like, if you had so many cars, because there's not, I don't know, I'm not a pilot, but I don't know how airspace works. But it's not like a highway where there's lines. How do you know where you're supposed to be and where you go? I mean, of course, it would have to be computer. There would have to be all kinds of stuff. But then I it wasn't even that was alarming to me or caused any concern. My thought was just like, what happens when you have an accident in the sky? Then the issue is whatever's in the sky has to come to the ground, which means it could come to the ground over anywhere. And so it's that secondary damage question that caught my attention of even if it can. Even if we can or we could, should we? You know, two cars get in an accident or you have a malfunction over what happens if the car comes crashing down over a school playground? Okay. Or somebody's house. I mean, literally, like debris could end up anywhere. So, yeah, I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's a real thing or AI generated, but that's my 2 cents on it. I know it's not worth much. You can scream in the comments at me of how fucking stupid I probably must be or irrational. Go right ahead. But yeah, that's what keeps me up at night. Not really. I just said that because I wrote down a phrase of, I think I wanted to ask somebody what keeps you up at night. I also think that would be a good name for a series, a little podcast series. What keeps you up at night? Interview people what they're afraid of. Or maybe I'll add it to questions that I ask people. as part of the interview. Yeah. Hmm. What keeps me up at night? The world wanting wanting my daughter to grow up and be okay, turn out okay, kind of like the older ones. So far, they've Ashley and Alexis have turned out fine and well adjusted and good people, nice, thoughtful, caring, not troublemakers. And that's all I want for my 11-year-old, the same. And I think about the world she'll have to face. And that's why I'm doing my little part to influence whatever I can, however I can, through words, through concepts, through perceptions, through ideas, perspective. That's what I meant. Yeah. Offering different perspectives, different way to look at something. And then whatever I can put out and be the example, and whatever lessons I can share in the event when I'm not here, she'll always have that. That's what keeps me up at night. Making sure I can leave her, leave the world a little bit better than I found it. And how do I do that? I do that by going out and being the person that I would want to meet. So, until Monday, while you're out there this weekend, remember to go out and be the person that you would want to meet.
Asteroid